What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for another edition of Broncos Now. Team reporter Sydney Jones here. Just one day until we are back at Empower Field at Mile High for the Broncos' first preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys. There was no practice today here at the UC Health Training Center as yesterday marked the final day of training camp practice. Head coach Nathaniel Hackett has not stated if any starters or which starters will play on Saturday, but Russell Wilson and Pat Surtain gave their thoughts on whether they think they need to play in the Broncos' first preseason game or even if they want to.
Whatever coach has, I mean, I'm ready to do whatever. You know, I'm excited to be a Denver Bronco. I'm excited to put the jersey on for the first time to run out that stadium. Whether I'm playing or not, I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm ready for it. You know, anytime you get to strap on your cleats, it's in. And everything else it's a blessing.
Do you have a preference?
I don't care. I mean, I want us to win the preseason games, and I want to win the rest of them. That's all that matters.
I can still go out there and get some work in, sharpen my tools, sharpen my game. You know, I can even just prepare for the regular season by playing. So, you know, I would never say that I shouldn't play. You know, because I still got a lot to prove. You know.
Do you want to play?
Like I said, it's something that coaches got to decide. But if I do, then I'll play, you know, so.
Coach Hackett did say that Thursday's joint practice with the Cowboys is arguably more valuable for his evaluation of players than this preseason game, and here's why.
In the preseason mindset, you have you're not going to play the guys throughout a whole game. It's not going to go. It's going to be very limited, if any at all. So when you're here, you can get those ones, especially the guys that you're wanting to see who's going to be there throughout the whole season. So now you put them out there, and they get, a game. They got 2-minute situations. The only difference is we're just not tackling. So you get everything up to that point. So I would say these are unbelievably important, and that's why I've always loved doing this throughout my entire career.
And with yesterday's practice being the final one of training camp, Russell Wilson spoke on whether he thinks his offense is where it should be.
I think our offense is exactly where I thought it would be, and honestly, probably further. We're really far along. It's impressive to see how much. Once again, I give credit to the guys, man. The investment they've put into it every day, every moment. It's all about them, you know, and what they've done. It's been a joy to be able to work with them every day and just put in the extra work, and I think it's obviously added up to us looking really sharp, playing really clean football, executing in every way throughout the day. Made some great big plays. I thought Cortland looked amazing today. Jerry Jeudy had a nice little touchdown down the sideline there. A few other guys made some really spectacular plays. It was just really exceptional. Sauber had a great play. Few of those. Hinton caught the touchdown again. You know, we had a bunch of touchdowns and a bunch of plays, you know, and it was really cool. You know, I thought Alberto looked really good too. He caught his touchdown, made a great play across the field. The line blocked extremely well. Those guys up front, they make everything happen, and we were able to run the ball and throw the ball extremely well. So it was a cool day.
Now joining me here in the podcast studio is Broncos lead writer Eric Dalala. Eric, appreciate you coming on the show as always. Training camp is officially over. 2 crazy weeks, but 2 fun weeks. How do you feel about the team? Do you feel like they're in a good position right now?
Yeah, I think they're in a good spot. I think you look offensively, the team took a lot of steps from where they were in the offseason, during the offseason program, mandatory minicamp to end things. I think they're in a much better spot. Russell Wilson said the other day, we're further ahead of where I thought we'd be. Yeah. He looks like he's comfortable. He's obviously working on some of his weak points, but deep ball still his strength, play action still his strength, moving around. There's a lot to like about what you see from this offense. Defensively, as good as advertised. You've got a healthy Bradley Chubb. The secondary looks as good as it has, really over the last few years. Yeah. And then this defensive line, which I had some questions about coming in, they've been really good as well. So I think as a whole, you're happy about what you have on each side of the ball. And then also, with the exception of Tim Patrick, the Broncos have largely come out of this without that many serious injuries. There's obviously some lingering things here and there, but nothing season-ending, knock on wood, and we hope that guys stay safe moving forward. But that's a positive as well, because really you just want to get to the season and get to these games. But I think guys have bought into what Nathaniel Hackett's saying. They're playing hard for him. They feel rested. Their bodies feel good from kind of this adapted training camp schedule. Yep. And I think you come out of this feeling really good about the work you've done and where you're going.
Eric, if you think back, 2 weeks ago from the start of training camp to kind of now, how have you seen the offense really progress and kind of over the next couple weeks before the start of the season. What excites you about that group as they really hone in on this offensive scheme?
Yeah, I think it's situational football that's improved. Obviously, we saw the Broncos improve in the 2-minute drill as time went on offensively.
Definitely.
I thought against the Cowboys, they were really good in the red zone, which is obviously a tough area of the field to master and to be really good in. I think you've seen fewer pre-snap penalties. You've seen fewer mental errors. You're seeing a connection between Cortland Sutton and Russell Wilson develop that I think is really impressive. Jerry Jeudy's been involved. The running game has really gotten going. I mean, I really think in every area they've improved and taken strides. And now the next few weeks is really about fine-tuning those things, because you kind of look at the next 2 weeks after this game. You're still going to be doing some prep for these preseason games. It's still going to be kind of training camp-esque in some ways, even though, the hours aren't going to be quite as long for these guys. But you're probably going to toss in some game planning too for Seattle, for Houston, for San Francisco. And so now is the time, I think, when you really start to kind of fine-tune things to be ready for week 1.
You talk about the progress from this offense, but was there anyone, I know the defense as a whole, they didn't have a new scheme to learn. It was very similar from what they were in last year. So was there anyone as a whole that kind of stood out to you on defense that maybe you thought had a better training camp than maybe you expected?
Yeah, I think someone that came on late that was really impressive was Nick Bonito.
Yeah.
Some people said he had as many as 4 sacks on Thursday against the Cowboys. He's a rookie that I think has had to learn. You're not going to be the best at this when you first show up. Nathaniel Hackett's talked about that a lot with rookies, that you come in as the best player from your college program. All of a sudden, you've got to learn that you've got a lot to learn. And I think Nick Bonito's realized that. We talked with him on Thursday, and he was, I thought really humble. Said, hey, I have a long way to go, but starting to kind of feel what it's like to produce at an NFL level. And he's going to be more important than a lot of people think, because obviously Randy Gregory is still on PUP.
Right.
Malik Reed has a skill set as a pass rusher, but with a smaller frame, run defense can sometimes be a little bit of a struggle. I think Nick Bonito is going to get more snaps than people expect early in the season. So he's been a guy that's really stood out to me. Elsewhere, Damari Mathis, a cornerback, another rookie. He's a guy that I think will end up probably pushing Michael Ojemudia for that 4th corner spot as we continue to go along. He had a strong day against the Cowboys, kind of had a leaping pass breakup. He's a really good player, and he's going to contribute on special teams too. So all in all, I'd say those 2 guys stood out as people that maybe coming into training camp I didn't have the highest expectations for, just in terms of being able to contribute right away.
Right.
Not about their futures overall, but now watching them, I think these are guys that could have an impact, sometime early in the season.
Well, with the Broncos' first preseason game tomorrow, Coach Hackett has not stated if starters or which starters will play in that game. So, Eric, what are your predictions? And who do you think will play, or how long do you think that they'll play for?
Yeah, I mean, reading the kind of tea leaves from what Nathaniel Hackett has said all week, I would be surprised if Russell Wilson plays. He's talked about how you weigh the risk and reward, you weigh what you've done in practice. Russell Wilson's a vet, obviously, so he's been in this league a long time. And even if he does play, Nathaniel Hackett said he's not going to play very much. It's going to go straight to either Josh Johnson or Brett Rippon. They're going to play a lot, so I wouldn't expect, if you're going there, to see Russ play more than a few snaps if he doesn't play at all. I'm going to guess he goes through some sort of pregame workout, and then maybe next week or the week after, which some teams will treat as a dress rehearsal, that's when maybe you see Russell Wilson. As far as some other guys, I don't think any of the injured guys that they'll chance that. So like a Melvin Gordon, a Ronald Darby, a Greg Dulcich, even if they could play for a regular season game, I don't think you're going to see them force them back. It just doesn't make sense.
Rather be safe than sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, does the offensive line, like a Garrett Bowles, do those guys play a little bit? Does a Javonte Williams get a couple of carries? I'd be surprised if Javonte Williams plays. Defensively, or Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, if Russ is not out there, it doesn't do them a whole lot of good to build chemistry with Josh Johnson, for example. So I don't know if they would play if Russ doesn't. And then you look at the defensive side of the football, I would guess guys like Justin Simmons, Pat Surtain, Bradley Chubb. Like, I could see a scenario where all those guys don't play. But what's really interesting is that we used to have this formula, right, where with 4 preseason games, you knew exactly what was going to happen. Guys like wouldn't necessarily play in the first game. They'd play a series. The second game, they'd play a quarter. The third game, they played a half.
Right.
Fourth game, they wouldn't play. Now you've got this 3-game setup where coaches do things very differently. Nathaniel Hackett's from this school of thought where you don't play anybody in the preseason at all because you don't want to get them hurt. You see that in LA with a Sean McVay or a Brandon Staley. So,
Right.
In a few years, I think we might have a better sense of like, how does Nathaniel Hackett handle this? How do teams around the league handle these 3 preseason games? But for right now, it's a little bit of a shot in the dark.
Well, in terms of the guys who probably will play on Saturday, some of those younger guys, is there anyone you're going to be watching for specifically, whether it's a specific player or specific position group?
Yeah. I talked about Benito and Mathis a little bit. I am really interested to see how those guys do. Baron Browning's another guy, transferred over to edge rusher.
Right.
He's a guy that I think will get a decent number of reps just because you want to see in live action, how does he hold up against a tackle? How does he fare in run support? Is he able to show off that bend and get to the quarterback on third down? Those are all things that I would want to see from him. Inside linebacker is going to be a really interesting spot just because behind Josie Jewell and Jonas Griffith, you've got Alex Singleton, who I would think would play a good amount on Saturday, but who else is there at that position? Is Barrington Wade? Does he make a name for himself? Does Justin Sternad kind of carve out a role? Those guys are going to be competing, and so you kind of look at those position battles in terms of, where can guys make the roster or not make the roster? So you think of that spot. I look at wide receiver behind guys like Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Montrell Washington. Like does Tyree Cleveland? Obviously he's not going to play, but Kendall Hinton, Seth Williams, Brandon Johnson, who makes a push for that last potential receiver spot. Same thing along the offensive line. I mean, pretty much everywhere you look, for me, it's about the bubble guys, and they're going to get a lot of playing time. So defensive line is another one. That 5th, 6th corner spot, if you go there, a lot of different, it's not going to count in the standings, but there is still a lot for guys to gain here. And I think that you'll get a good sense. Some guys shrink in these moments and some guys come up big. And I think we'll have a better sense come Sunday morning of who's actually going to be competing for these jobs and who's kind of going to fade away.
Yeah. Russell Wilson said on Thursday that regardless, he still wants to win all these preseason games, even though they don't count.
That's right.
I love it. Well, just one day away till we're back at Empower Field at Mile High. Excited to be back at the stadium.
I know. Game day's back again.
Yeah. Well, Eric, appreciate your insight always.
Thanks, Sid.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Broncos Country, thanks so much for joining me here inside the UC Health Training Center for another edition of Broncos Now. Hope to see you all at Empower Field at Mile High tomorrow evening for the game. Don't forget that kickoff is at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. If not, I hope to see you all right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube Monday evening for another episode.